Okay, shall I start the class? Shall I start the class? Please raise your hand. Okay, right. Stop. So in the previous class, yesterday we have looked at the concept of dipole, okay, and how that concept of dipole is actually responsible for the physiological basis of the ECG. We have many dipoles being created in the heart as the action potential is spreading, and those dipoles are having a magnitude and direction, and what is recorded by the electrode is the average dipole at any given point of time, all that we have seen. Then we looked at the steps in which the ECG has to be read, and then we also saw the a phenomenon, a physiological phenomenon called as sinus arrhythmia. So sinus arrhythmia is a normal phenomenon which is there in most of us. It is more pronounced during the adulthood. In adulthood, it is more pronounced. So what is the sinus arrhythmia? The sinus arrhythmia, we see that the heart rate increases during inspiration and decreases during expiration. There are a number of explanations which have been put forward to explain this process of sinus arrhythmia. So one explanation is what I told you yesterday. During inspiration, there is a stretching of the lung walls. So stretch receptors are activated there, and they will send impulses to the cardio-inhibitory center. So inhibiting the cardio-inhibitory center, and that is causing decrease in vagal tone, and that will cause the heart rate to increase. Yeah. Then there is another explanation. Somebody came online, I think HSV came online, and she told me, Rizwana, please shut off your video. So HSV all told about one reflex called as Bain bridge reflex. Not brain, it is Bain, B-A-I-N, name of a person. So this Bain bridge reflex tells that during inspiration, intrathoracic pressure will decrease. So blood is sucked into the thorax. More blood is returning back to the heart. That is, the venous return is going to increase. So right atrium gets stretched. Atrial walls are going to stretch. And in the wall of the atria, we have a number of stretch receptors. One such stretch receptor is the so-called tachycardia producing receptors. They will send impulses again to the medulla oblongata, which will stimulate the vasomotor center, inhibit the cardio-inhibitory center. Net result is that the heart rate is going to increase during inspiration. And then you have one more explanation where yesterday I think Sharanya had asked me about this, which is given in Gaitan, that during inspiration, in the inspiratory center is discharging. Some of the impulses are escaping, irradiating the nearby vasomotor center and stimulating the vasomotor center. Vasomotor center is the center in the heart where the sympathetic nerve fibers arise. And when the vasomotor center is stimulated, the heart rate is going to increase. So basically, to summarize, sinus arrhythmia is increase in heart rate during inspiration and decrease during expiration. It is more pronounced in adults. And the cause for the sinus arrhythmia, we actually don't know. So a number of explanations have been put forward. One is the stretch of the lung wall, which I told you. The second one is the Bain bridge reflex. And the third one is the irradiation of stimulus from the impulses from the respiratory center onto the nearby vasomotor center stimulating. So I'll move on to the next thing. Shall I move on? Please raise your hand if I can move on the next thing. Anything you want to ask me about yesterday's class, you can unmute yourself and ask me. I'll pause here for some time. Anything you want to ask me, please unmute yourself and ask me. Otherwise, I'll move on. I'll give you a minute's time. Okay, so this is the one which I did not have essay. So I was just telling you about the concept of dipole, and that the uh, when the heart is activated, the current flows both intracellular part inside and extracellular part. So you have current flowing in two directions in between two poles here. One is the one which is activated, other is yet to be activated part. And then the extracellular current is the one which we are recording in the ECG, this extracellular recording. That is like a dipole. And the many dipoles are there, all that I have told you. So this is the explanation for that. I hope you all are taking some notes. Anyway, if you're not taken down the notes, I'll again put this on the YouTube channel or something. Please make some notes as the class is being taken. Now, how to calculate the electrical axis of the heart? To calculate the electrical axis of the heart, many methods are there. But the method which I felt was the simplest one was what I read in one book called as Boron, Boron. Okay, so in this book, he gives two methods for us to estimate the electrical axis of the heart. If you see in the slide, you can have this method called as the geometric method on top. One method called as the geometric method on top, and the other one below, which is called as the inspection. Okay, so you have two methods. One is the geometric method. Yeah, so one is the geometric method on top, method A, and the other one is the inspection method. So we look at this geometric method. Yeah, you want to ask something, Latif?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, please unmute yourself, and because you raised your hand, I was just wondering. Okay, so you have this method called as geometric method. So what is this geometric method? You take the ECG from lead 2 and AVR. Okay, you take the record of the ECG from lead 2 and AVR, and you calculate the in lead 2 the height of the R wave. So here it is 2 units. Okay, and AVR, I told you yesterday, it is all negative, is it not? So AVR, you calculate the negative, it will be -1 unit. Okay, so here you can see it is +2 units and -1. And by the side, you have the diagram. What is the system called as? Anybody can unmute themselves and tell me what is the system called as?
Hexaxial system, sir.
Hexaxial
Yeah,
system.
very good. This system is called as the hexaxial system. Okay, so in this hexaxial system, you will see that this +60 degrees and -120 degrees, that axis represents the lead 2. Okay, so on that lead 2, from the center, you draw one line of 2 units length. Any 2 units, keep it constant. Okay, it can be 2 millimeter, 2 centimeter, or whatever. Same units you should use. And then on AVR, in the negative direction, see here, this is the AVR, and the arrowhead here, this arrowhead is positive. So here, in the negative direction for AVR, you will mark -1 unit. Okay, so lead 2, from the center, you will mark 2 units. That is the height of the R wave in lead 2. And here also in lead AVR, you will mark this -1 unit here. Okay. Then what you will do is you will draw two perpendiculars, 90-degree angle at that point to that axis. So for lead AVR, you will draw one perpendicular passing through that point what you have marked. And then again, similarly for lead 2, you will mark another perpendicular on the point you have marked at 2 units. So we have one perpendicular like this, and another perpendicular going in the other direction. Lead 2 here also. So one perpendicular and the other perpendicular. The point at which these two perpendiculars are cutting each other, are intersecting with each other, that point is the represents the head of that mean cardiac nexus. So at that from the center, you draw one arrow up to that point where these two perpendiculars are cutting each other. That will be the electrical axis of the heart. So in this example which I have given you, the electrical axis, that yellow line, yellow arrow represents the electrical axis of the heart, that is around 95 degrees. So is it normal? Anybody can come online, unmute themselves and tell me. In the example I have given you, we have done the calculation of the geometric method of the electrical axis of the heart, and we got a value of plus 95 degrees. Is it normal? Anybody can come online and tell me. Unmute themselves, tell me if that plus 95 degrees is normal or not. Hello? What is the normal axis of the heart?
It's normal, sir.
What is the normal axis of
It
the heart?
can be between. It can be between -30 to 110 degrees.
Yeah, okay. It can be between -30 to plus 110 degrees, is it not? So here it is coming as plus 95 degrees. So this is normal. You understood this method, or you want me to repeat it again? Hello? Repeat. Okay. So for calculating the electrical axis of the heart, we can use two methods. One is the geometric method, other is the inspection. So I'll tell you the geometric method first. Okay. So in the geometric method, we'll take two leads. One is lead 2, another is lead AVR. Okay. So in lead 2, the AVR is in the upward direction, means it is positive. Okay. So that you measure the height of AVR. Here it is plus 2. And in AVR, the AVR, lead AVR, R wave, here R wave is plus 2 units, and here R wave is in the downward deflection, it is -1 unit. You can see here. Okay. So then you will draw one system called as the hexaxial system, which I told you yesterday, and you have an axis. And you have an axis which represents AVR, and you have another axis which represents lead 2. So on the axis which represents AVR, you will mark this -1 unit. This is positive, this is negative, so it -100 from the center comes here. Towards the arrowhead is positive, towards the other end is negative. So here is -1 from the center of the circle you will mark. So see, from the center of the circle you will mark that point of -1 unit. So similarly on lead 2, you will mark how many units? Anybody can answer. -2 or +2 units?
+2 units.
You will mark +2 units
Plus
on
2.
lead 2 also. Okay, so here you can see on lead 2, the +2 units is marked. +2 means it is going towards the arrowhead. Okay. Then on that point where you have marked on those two axes of those two leads, you will draw one perpendicular line. See, you will draw one perpendicular line on lead AVR. You will draw another perpendicular line on lead 2. And where that perpendicular will pass? it will pass on the point which you have marked first. You marked one point, is it not, which represented -1 on AVR, and another point which represented +2 on lead 2. At that point, you will draw a perpendicular. So you will extend these two perpendiculars. You'll extend these two perpendiculars, and these two perpendiculars are going to cross each other at some point. Okay, they cross each other here. Okay, you mark that point, and you draw an arrowhead from the center of the hexaxial system till that point where these two are cutting each other. Okay, and you draw an arrowhead at that point. So this yellow line which is there, that represents the axis of the heart. So here, in this example, you will see that the axis of that yellow line is, this is 90 and it is around 95 degrees, plus 95 degrees. Okay. So we know that the normal axis of the heart is between -30 and +110. So here it is plus 95 degrees. So it is in the normal range, and this electrical axis of the heart is normal. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I may go off because the scheduled time of 40 minutes is getting over. I'll schedule another thing very soon, and then maybe around 11:30 you all have to come again online. You have to follow that same method. The time left is around, in this group it is 6 minutes, in this group it is around 8 minutes. So as soon as it is over in the first group, you all again have to log in with the same ID and password. Understood?
So,
Around 11:45 maybe you all can come. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then you have the second
Yes, sir.
method called as the inspection method. Inspection. So what is this inspection method? In the inspection method, you are hearing me in this group. In this group, you are hearing me.
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
The inspection method, again you inspect lead to. ఇది అయిపోయేలాగా ఉంది మళ్ళా కనెక్షన్ మీరు ఉండండి, నేను పిలుస్తాను. ఇది ఫస్ట్ గ్రూప్ లో 6 minutes ఉంది, అయిపోగానే నేను చెప్పేస్తాను. Okay, so inspection method is you identify the lead to and identify lead where QRS is isoelectric. In this example, it is AVL. So in the ECG which they recorded, QRS complex is isoelectric in AVL, and lead 2 you take. So lead 2 is perpendicular. See, R wave is perpendicular to this isoelectric line. Again, you take the hexaxial system. In the hexaxial system, this is the line representing the AVL. See, this is the line representing AVL, and this is the line representing lead 2. Right? So you identify an axis perpendicular to the isoelectric line lead. Which is the isoelectric lead? AVL is the isoelectric lead. To that AVL, which is the one which is perpendicular? Lead 2. Okay, so lead 2 is present between plus 60 degrees and minus 120 degrees. And because lead 2 shows a positive deflection, plus 60 must be correct. So that plus 60 is going to be the electrical axis of that. This inspection method is not as accurate as the previous one. So I'll repeat the inspection method. In the inspection method, what you do is you look at all the ECG leads. All the ECG leads, where is QRS flat? Means there is no recording. Okay, so you see that. So in the example here, AVL, there is no QRS complex. It's isoelectric. So you go to the hexaxial system and you see the axis which represents the AVL. See here, it is between -30 and plus 150 degrees. That we already know, a standard. Okay, so to that axis, to AVL, which lead is perpendicular? Perpendicular and 90 degrees. So which is perpendicular? Lead 2. Lead 2 is perpendicular. Okay, and lead 2 we know is positive. It is plus 60 degrees. So we approximate and say that the axis of the heart is around plus 60 degrees. I feel it's better you follow the first method. Okay, so you understood? Shall I move on to the next thing?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This you may have to again go through. Just I'll put the recording. You may have to listen to it again. ECG trying to understand in the class itself is very difficult. Trying to understand online, I think, is even more difficult. Okay, so you may have to listen to it repeatedly. I'll put the recording today. So just look at this. This shows so many panels. Panel A, normal sinus rhythm. Panel 2 shows the heart blocks. What do you understand by heart blocks? Heart blocks does not tell about blocks in the blood flow. Heart blocks refer to blocks in the, complete that sentence. Heart blocks refers to block in the, hello,
Transmission of impulses from atrium to the ventricle.
which system?
Conducting,
Heart blocks,
conducting system.
Conducting system.
yeah, heart blocks refer to blocks in the conducting system. So heart blocks can be of different types. First degree heart block, where PR interval is prolonged. Normal duration of the PR interval is 0.12 to 0.20 seconds. Okay, so roughly I'm approximating. The normal duration of the PR interval is 0.12 to 0.20 seconds or 0.18 seconds, some books say. So here you can see that the PR interval is prolonged. PR interval is the interval from the beginning of the P wave to beginning of the QRS complex. Very, very, very frequently asked question. PR interval. Okay. So what is happening in first degree heart block? In first degree heart block, the PR interval is prolonged. All the impulses from the atria are being conducted to the ventricles. But the only problem here is PR interval is more than 0.20 seconds. And what is PR interval? PR interval is the time interval from the beginning of the P wave to the beginning of the QRS complex. What does the PR interval represent? PR interval represents atrial depolarization plus conduction to the through the AV node. AV node does not represent ventricles in QRS complex. Okay. Okay. So PR interval represents atrial depolarization. And okay, so moving on, we stop here with this slide. So you can see here that the first slide is a normal slide. The first slide is a normal slide. So the ECG recording in normal sinus rhythm. Normal sinus rhythm means that the SA node, the sinoatrial node, is functioning as the pacemaker. If you move to this panel B, you will see that this ECG record is a record of something called as first degree heart block. Heart blocks are blocks in the conducting system. Okay, so blocks in the conducting system are of three types: first degree heart block, second degree heart block, and third degree heart block, also called as complete heart block. Understood? What are the three types? First degree, second degree, and third degree. Something like our Polish torture. Huh? Okay. So the first degree heart block is where the PR interval is prolonged. You can see here. Normal PR interval is around 0.12 to 0.20 seconds. Here it is more. If you have the time, you can sit and calculate. You will see that this is more than 0.2 seconds. So this type of a heart block, where all the P waves are conducted to the ventricles. But the only abnormality is that there is a prolongation of the PR interval. Such a type of block is called as first degree heart block. Sharan, you raised your hand. Anything? Okay, so this is called as first degree heart block. So the second degree heart block is of again two types. Mobitz type 1 and Mobitz type 2. The Mobitz type 1 heart block is also called as one phenomenon, Wenckebach's phenomenon, Wenckebach apostrophe S. Okay, so the Mobitz type 1 second degree heart block is called as Wenckebach's phenomenon. So if you observe this Wenckebach's phenomenon, you will see that what is happening is the PR interval in successive ECG recordings goes on increasing. Prolongation of the PR interval, and ultimately you have a place where there is a P wave, but there is no QRS complex. So there is a dropped beat. Atria is contracting, but the atrial wave is not conducted to the ventricles. So there is no QRS complex. So you will not hear a pulse or you will not get a heartbeat. The prolongation of the PR interval with a dropped QRS complex or a dropped beat, that type of heart block, second degree heart block, is called as Mobitz type 1 heart block. It is also called as Wenckebach's phenomenon. Very few. Okay, you are able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir. We are
Okay.
able
Yes,
to hear you.
sir.
Okay. So you understood about the first degree heart block and Wenckebach's phenomenon?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Um,
You want me to
I
repeat that?
want you to explain once again.
Okay. So the first degree heart block is where all the P waves are conducted to the ventricles. Means there is connection between the atria and ventricles. But the only abnormality in this first degree heart block is that the PR interval is prolonged. Normal duration of the PR interval is around 0.12 to 0.20 seconds. Here it is more than 0.20 seconds. If you just calculate, you will see that it is more. Okay, so that is called as first degree heart. The second degree heart block is again divided into two types. Mobitz type 1 second degree heart block, also called as Wenckebach's phenomenon, and Mobitz type 2 second degree heart block. So this Mobitz type 1 second degree heart block, which is also called as Wenckebach's phenomenon, is that if you look at the successive ECG recordings, you will see that the PR interval goes on increasing. Prolongation of the PR interval becomes longer, longer, longer. Compared to the previous one, this is long. Compared to the previous one, this is much longer. So ultimately, you come to a recording where there is a P wave, but there is no QRS complex. Means there is a drop P. Successive prolongation of the PR interval followed by a dropped beat. That type of a second degree heart block is called as Mobitz type 1 heart block. It is also called as Wenckebach's phenomenon. I repeat, prolongation of the successive PR intervals followed by a dropped beat or a missed beat. There is no QRS complex, means it is a missed beat. Okay, so that type of a heart block is called as Wenckebach's phenomenon. So going on to the second degree heart block or Mobitz type 2 heart block. Mobitz type 2 heart block, all the P waves are not followed by QRS complex. Means all the P waves are not conducted to the ventricles. So here you can see in this one, there are two P waves. Only the first one is followed by a QRS complex. The second one, there is no QRS complex. Then again you go next, you'll see P wave, there is QRS complex, and for the next P wave, there is no QRS complex. So every second P wave, there is no QRS complex. So this type of heart block is called as 2:1. Two P waves, there is one QRS complex. So this is called as 2:1 heart block. So you can have 3:1. What is 3:1? For every three P waves, there is one QRS complex. And a 4:1, depending on where the block is. So such type of heart block where all the P waves are not conducted to the ventricles. Every second or third or fourth, that is 2:1 or 3:1 or 4:1 type of heart block is called as second degree heart block. Mobitz type 2. Then you can have the bundle branch block. If you remember the anatomy of the conducting system, the only way by which an impulse can go from the atria to the ventricles is by answer. You can unmute yourself and tell me the answer. Huh? Okay, the only way, the only way by which impulses can go from the atria to the ventricles is by the bundle of His in a normal person. Why it cannot spread directly from the atria to the ventricles along the muscles?
Annulus fibrosis.
Yeah, because there is something called as annulus fibrosis. Okay. Now, after the bundle of His is entering into the ventricles, it is again dividing into two branches. The right bundle, it gives off the right bundle and continues as the left bundle. Okay. So the conduction in these bundle branches can be blocked. That happens whenever there is some myocardial ischemia or infarction, which is involving this bundle branches. So here you can see this is a right bundle branch, first one, and in E, and the second one is the left bundle branch. So you can see the abnormality, wide QRS complex with it shows as if there is a right axis deviation here, and in the first one. The second one, again, there is a wide QRS complex, but its shape is different. See, this is one shape, this is another shape. And here also it is wide, but here this one will show a left axis deviation. Okay, so bundle RBB, LBB, you can have, here again, so many types are there. You don't bother about all that. As when you go to medicine, you'll read that. You can have bifascicular block, means two fascicles of the left bundle. Left bundle gives off the left anterior fascicle and right posterior fascicle. They can be blocked. Okay, so that possibility is there. So depending on that, you can have bifascicular, trifascicular blocks and all that. Bundle branch blocks, ultimately, what you have to remember for now is QRS complex is very wide. Wide QRS complex. Normal QRS complex you can see on top, first panel, it is not so wide. It's not so broad. Come down here to E, see how broad it is. Wide QRS complex. Depending on whether it is right bundle branch block or left bundle branch block, you will have right axis deviation and left axis deviation. Third degree heart block. Third degree heart block is also called as complete heart block. Harshapriya, please close your video. Mahesh Babu vastunnade. Okay. So the third degree heart block is also called as complete heart block. Means no waves, no P waves are being conducted to the ventricles at all. Ventricles are beating at one rate, atria is beating at another rate. So such a type of block is called as third degree or complete. Complete and arthamaindi kada, no conduction at all between the atria and the ventricles. So this happens when the A node is damaged or the bundle of His is damaged. This is going to happen. Now, here there is something called as idioventricular rhythm. What is that idioventricular rhythm? Ventricles will start beating on its
Ventricle
own.
beats on its own.
Yeah, ventricle starts beating on its own. Some part in the ventricle will start acting as a pacemaker for the ventricle. Usually it is the Purkinje system. If you remember the anatomy of the conducting system, if the block is high and some part higher up in the conducting system, in the Purkinje system, starts functioning as the pacemaker, the heart rate will be around 45 beats per minute, idioventricular rhythm. However, somewhere lower down, if a part of the Purkinje system is taking up the function of the pacemaker, the heart rate will be much lower, 15 to 20 beats per minute. Okay. Now, when the heart rate is so slow in third-degree heart block, the pumping of the heart may not be enough. Cardiac output is heart rate into stroke volume, is it not? So, not enough cardiac output is there. The person will have cerebral ischemia. Now and then he'll have cerebral ischemia and he'll faint. So, a patient with third-degree heart block with a heart rate of around 15 to 20 minutes, 20 beats per minute, he has this fainting episode. This phenomenon is called as Stokes Adams syndrome. It's called as Stokes, not stroke. STOK, Stokes Adams syndrome. Okay, so it's very frequently asked viva question or short notes. What is Stokes Adams syndrome? Yesterday, somebody had asked me. I think Nikita Gidwani had asked me on the phone, and I had told her. Okay. Quickly to summarize, heart blocks in the conducting system are called as heart blocks. 3 types: first, second, and third degree. First degree heart block, all P waves are conducted. Each and every P wave is followed by a QRS complex. The only abnormality is prolongation of the PR interval. PR interval is more than 0.20 seconds. Second degree heart block, Mobitz type 1, Mobitz type 2. Mobitz type 1, it's also called as Wenckebach's phenomenon. PR interval goes on increasing successively, and suddenly you have a drop beat. Again, this phenomenon repeats. PR interval goes on increasing, you have a drop beat. This phenomenon is called as Wenckebach's phenomenon. Second degree heart block, Mobitz type 2. In Mobitz type 2 second degree heart block, not all P waves are conducted to the ventricles. Some are conducted, some are not conducted. So here you have different patterns. 2:1, 3:1, 4:1. 4:1 is rare. 2:1 heart block. Every second P wave is conducted. Every third P wave is conducted. 3:1. Every fourth P wave is conducted. 4:1. So that is the Mobitz type 2. Then you can have something called as bundle branches. Bundle branch block. Right bundle branch block, left bundle branch block, where you have wide QRS form. Third degree heart block. What is the other name for third degree heart block? Complete. It's called as complete heart block. No P waves are being conducted to the ventricles at all. Okay, so atria is beating at its own rate, ventricles are beating at its own rate. Ventricle starts its own rhythm. That is called as idioventricular rhythm. In third degree heart block, the ventricle starts its own beat. That is called as idioventricular rhythm. And in this third degree heart block, depending on where the pacemaker is in the ventricles, you can have a heart rate of 30 to 45 beats per minute, or you can have a lower heart rate of 15 to 20 beats per minute. So when the heart rate is around 15 to 20 beats per minute, the cardiac output is not enough. Cardiac output is heart rate into stroke volume. So cardiac output is not enough, and blood flow to the brain is decreased. The one organ which we all use very rarely, is it not? So what happens when the blood flow to the brain is decreased? The patient will have ischemia, cerebral ischemia, and he'll have a fainting attack. The correct word for that fainting attack is called as syncope, syncope. So fainting attack because of third degree heart block, where the heart rate is around 15 to 20 beats per minute. That whole thing is called as Stokes-Adams syndrome. Understood? Shall I go on to the next thing? Do you all understand? Here,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
heart block can be a short note question. Heart blocks. Okay. Then one more abnormality is something called as WPW syndrome, Wolf Parkinson White syndrome. So what is this Wolf Parkinson White syndrome? Normally, the only connection between the atria and the ventricle is the bundle of his. In some people, you have an extra connection between the AV node and ventricles, apart from bundle of his. That extra connection, we call it as aberrant, means abnormal. ABERRANT, aberrant bundle. Any idea what is the name of that bundle?
Bundle of
Bundle of
Kent.
Kent.
Yeah, very good. It is also called as bundle of Kent. Okay. So this bundle of Kent is there connecting the extra connection between the atria and the ventricles. So what happens is you have impulses going in both the normal pathway and the abnormal pathway, because of which you will get a typical abnormality in the ACG. You will get something called as a delta wave. You can have the slurring of the QRS complex, and most important, one very important finding, you'll have a shortening of the PR interval. Normal PR interval is 0.12 to 0.20 seconds. It is between the beginning of the P wave to the beginning of the QRS complex. If the PR interval is less than 0.12 seconds, we call it as a shortened PR interval. So this is the WPW syndrome. I repeat, in WPW syndrome or Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, you have an abnormal connection between the AV node and ventricles. That connection is called as the bundle of Kent. So because the impulse from the AV node is going in both the normal pathway, the bundle of His, and this bundle of Kent, you are having typical abnormalities in the ECG. You'll have a delta wave and you'll have a shortened PR. So did you all read about this ectopic foci and circus movement?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. We read about ectopic foci. Hello?
In the first group? No, in the first group, 1 to 100. I'll just quickly show you one slide. So This slide shows you the probable mechanism by which re-entrant tachycardia or circus movement can happen. So, this is a pathway which is branching into two, and the two branches are also connected. Okay, so you have a branch, you have one bundle giving off two branches, and the two branches are also connected. So this is the anatomical arrangement. So in this pathway, when the impulse is coming down, and travels down both the branches, okay? Then when it goes through the connection in the two between the two branches, the two action potentials will collide, and there is no further conduction because both action potentials are in the refractory period. In a normal person, when you have an anatomical pathway like this, where one impulse comes and goes in two branches, the two branches are connected here. There is no scope for the impulse to travel back. But here in the D, you'll see that in one branch there is a block, and that block is special. What is special about that block? Can you read and tell me? That block is?
There is a retrograde.
No. Look at the block. You're going forward. Look at this number one you see. That block is unidirectional. It is not a bidirectional block. Okay. So you'll understand why I stressed on unidirectional. So again, see, the impulse comes here. The impulse comes here. Then it is dividing into two. In one pathway, it cannot go. Why it cannot go in that pathway? Because there is a block. Okay. So in the other pathway, the impulse is traveling in the connection. It comes up, and because it is the unidirectional block, it can pass up in the reverse direction. And this can go on, this circus movement can go on. Just look at it, you'll understand. So in one, when the impulse has come, it has traveled in both the branches. It goes down one branch. It is not able to go down the other branch because there is a unidirectional block. Then the impulse will travel in the connection between the two branches, and it can travel back because the block is no longer there. The refractoriness is no longer there. And that unidirectional conduction block allows retrograde transmission of the impulse. That impulse will again go in the branch, go down, go in the connection. So you have a re-entrant excitation. This type of movement is called as a circus movement. So most of the atrial tachycardia, atrial flutter, ventricular tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation you see is because of such type of circus movements in many parts of the heart. So how a circus movement is coming, this is the explanation. Did you understand or you want me to repeat?
Yes, sir. I want you to repeat.
What you all can do is, if you are having a paper and pen, you can just draw the diagram.
Okay.
Paper pen leda?
Okay, sir. Undi.
ఆ డయాగ్రామ్ డ్రా చేయండి. డ్రా చేస్తే ఒకసారి మీకు అర్థమవుతుంది. Don't ask your brother and mother to draw.
Sir, I have a small doubt.
Yeah, tell me. Cheppama.
In the fifth one, there is a conduction block, but in the fourth diagram, the conduction block is removed. Is it
Yeah,
because
what see in the fifth one he says the normal impulse cannot come down because of the unidirectional block. It cannot come down. It can go in the reverse direction. That is what he means.
okay?
See, the block which is there in this branch, the first condition we told that it is a bidirectional or unidirectional.
Unidirectional.
It is not allowing conduction in the anterograde direction. It is allowing conduction, retrograde conduction it will allow. Why it is allowing in retrograde, you don't bother now. Okay, just remember that it is a unidirectional block. In one direction it is not allowing, in the reverse direction it is allowing. Because of this property, the whole problem is happening. If it was a bidirectional block, complete block, this would not have happened.
Okay. Yes, sir, I got an idea.
Quickly you draw this diagram. I'll come back.
Hmm.
Over. Hello. If you have finished the diagram, raise your hand. Even this session is going to get over. There are only 2 minutes remaining.
Yes, sir. It is done.
Okay. So this atrial fibrillation and ventricular fibrillation are very serious conditions. Atrial fibrillation is not as serious in the sense that as long as the person is at rest, he will not have that person will not have any problem. But the chance of blood clotting is there. Clots forming in atrial fibrillation is there. So in the atria, in both the atria, you have multiple re-entrant tachycardias forming. Each one is causing one impulse to go around so many times, and that is causing this atrial fibrillation. And you'll see that in atrial fibrillation, ventricle is going at one rate, atria is going at another rate. Because not all the impulses from the atria will be conducted to the ventricles. AV node can conduct impulses maximum at 230 beats per minute. It cannot go beyond that 230 beats per minute. Anything, Renuka? Okay. And if you look at the panel below, same thing in the ventricle, you see totally abnormal rhythm, very fast. The ventricles are beating. There will be no cardiac output at all here in these patients. Ventricular fibrillation is a life-threatening condition.